Welcome to the Dr. Nikki Starr Show, a podcast to support you in your spiritual awakening and personal development. As a spiritual teacher, healer, and intuitive coach, my intention is to empower you to live your ultimate potential and your ultimate life. As a former medical doctor and mystic, my role is to bridge the gap between science and spirituality to support you in understanding more of your multidimensional aspects. I share on a diverse range of topics, and it's all to support your greatest becoming. My mission is to continue reaching millions of people for the healing and awakening of humankind for the creation of the new earth. Thank you for being here. Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to the next season of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. We just finished the season of love and relationships, and now we're going to finish out this year of podcasting in the season of spirituality. And our first episode is about choosing a spiritual life. And so what do I mean by choosing a spiritual life? Well, first, I just want to say it's not for the faint of heart. Let's just put that out there right away. When you choose a spiritual life, you go on a whole other life journey that's different than anything you've experienced before. And it is a very rewarding path, but I have to say that it is not the easiest. And it's not the easiest because we are challenged into our greatness. We are asked to rise above aspects of ourselves that are not serving to live our ultimate potential, our highest potential, and we can even call this our spiritual blueprint. So I like to say when you choose a spiritual life, it's like the Matrix where you take the red pill. And once you take the red pill and you are living a spiritual life, nothing is by chance, and everything is serving your greatest becoming, and everything has meaning, and everything is creating or dissolving karma. And karma can be both what we think of as positive or negative, but in the vast field of the quantum and the universe, everything is neutral. It just is, and it just has different feelings, frequencies, emotions. And what we refer to as quote unquote good is the feelings that feel yummy, like love and gratitude and inspiration. And that's generally, and even bliss, like high levels of ecstasy and pleasure and bliss. And we can say that that's ultimately the goal, right? And then there's the feelings that all humans feel connected to what we might consider more of the shadow or the bad, quote unquote, bad emotions that could be like anger and rage and jealousy and dislike, and even go to the extreme of hate. And so we have these that don't usually feel so good. That I truly believe that spectrum, though it's a part of our human experience, I feel that it is part of the virus of the human experience. And I don't believe that it was always a part of the human experience. And I believe that us choosing a spiritual life and being on a spiritual awakening journey is that we are reawakening the timelines and the knowings within ourselves of where we've lived heaven on earth. And even when we think of the word heaven, that's essentially a place that is all of the good feelings and experiences of the human experience. And though the current 3D reality that we live on, this earth plane, is known for its duality and polarity, I don't believe that it has to be that way. And as we ascend into the fifth dimensional space and beyond, this is what is that heaven on earth. And we have lived it before on earth as well as in other planets. And there is a big wave of incarnation of evolved souls that are coming to the planet with the goal of creating this new golden age that we hear of as the new earth. And so I, along with fellow colleagues, and I know some of you and most of you listening to this podcast
feel called to co-create the new earth, and you're doing it, or you want to do it, and you're awakening. And that's why you found this podcast, and that's why you feel this resonance with my work and with my podcast, and that's what brings you here. And so the intention of this podcast is to support humanity in the healing and awakening, to bring us to that new earth, that heaven on earth that is possible for all. And how I like to describe the new earth too is where we're learning through pleasure. But of course, as there is karma and we are still living in duality, we still may experience moments of learning through pain. And the more that we can kind of get the lesson sooner, the more we can start to learn through pleasure. Because the only reason the pain comes is because it's like that banging on the door, because we weren't really listening before. And as I mentioned, when we take that red pill and we choose a spiritual life and we've spiritually awakened and we decide, it seems like it's not a decision, but it is, because we decided it before we incarnated, before we chose to come into human form, into the person you are in this lifetime. You decided you were going to have a spiritual awakening. And then there came that moment of choice, and then you had the awakening. And what I mean by a spiritual awakening is you had any form of an enlightenment experience that opens your eyes to the more of all that is, that you know that life is not just what's in front of us, and all of this is not just by chance, but you know that it serves a greater purpose. You know that you have some form of a mission that serves the greater good, and you know that everything is interconnected. And so what that brings with us is spiritual responsibility, spiritual integrity, and it does require us to be really conscious, self-aware, and knowing that our actions have effect and consequence. And every choice we make and every choice that we don't make is affecting the next moment and the next moment and the next moment. So this is giving the ultimate meaning to your life. Like, your life has so much meaning when you choose a spiritual path. And that's why it's not for the faint of heart, because it is not aligned when you are on a spiritual path to act and do things and make choices out of integrity. It's like, imagine your whole life is under a microscope, and maybe you can consider this pressure, or maybe you can consider this as something really beautiful, because that makes every moment really matter. So you really live life to the fullest. You're not going to just sit around and waste your life away. When you choose a spiritual path, you know you're here for greatness and you wish to live that. And you also wish to support other people in that. And so it's not by chance that most people who awaken then find themselves in some type of service-based industry, some type, a lot turned to healing and coaching work and ways to help the planet. And so in episodes for this season of spirituality, we're even going to get into spiritual business. We're going to get into the nuances of radical self-responsibility and what that means, and self-awareness, and doing all the work to rise into our greatness. And it gets to be fun too. I know that I am guilty of having been so focused and dedicated for over a decade in my spiritual path that I sometimes wasn't even having as much fun as I did in the past. And then having that awareness of, okay, it's important to have fun too. We don't have to always be healing and going through a dark night of the soul, even though when we're on the other side, we're like, oh, that was amazing. And we feel the shifts and the transformations, and we feel the wisdom we've accrued. And we are also here to live a human experience. And I believe that it is through the fun and the joy and all of that as well. Like I said, learning through pleasure is what is meant for us in living a spiritual life as well. Because when we are fully living the new earth, heaven on earth, we get to decide the experiences we want to live, because that's the other premise of choosing a spiritual life, is you take radical responsibility for creating your life. So every situation you find yourself in, you created it. And sometimes that can be a hard pill for us to swallow when we find ourselves in a situation that we don't love as much. But then, of course, it's so rewarding when we find ourselves in situations that are just like, this is the best. And I know that I created it. So I love living a spiritual life. And I know that for like some of my loved ones, like some people in my family, and, some people don't necessarily see life the way that I see it and that you might see it. And that's why we have community, spiritual community, even online. That's why, we find people or podcasts that we like to listen to so that we can feel a sense of belonging. Because it's very interesting that not everyone who chooses a spiritual path in this life is born into a family that is necessarily aligned or on a spiritual path, but know that that's part of your teaching and that's part of your path. So for me, I know that I've been meant to learn how to be with others who do not agree. And because I'm a catalyzer of awakener. And so oftentimes people will meet me, even when I was on the Fox reality show, even when I walked down the street, even when I was just in London this past week celebrating Valentine's week with my beloved. It was so clear that everything that I was saying was causing a paradigm shift in this cab driver's mind. Like, I could see the way his eyes were moving, that the wheels were turning. Something was shifting. It was creating a pattern interrupt in relation to how he saw life. And I know even when I call my parents sometimes and I talk about the meanings of things, and they're like, not everything has a meaning. And I'm like, yes, it does. And it's not for us to necessarily like preach or put our opinions onto other people. I am not a fan of that. I've done that. And then over the years, I gained that spiritual wisdom to know that when the teacher is ready, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So when someone asks me a question, then I reveal myself. And there are moments that people are still drawn to me when I go places. They can feel the energy, but I have been so much more quiet in the latter part of the years of my spiritual path than in the beginning. In the beginning, I was like, everyone needs to try this. This is amazing. And I was really pushing everything I did onto everyone. And now I tend to use like a thermometer, and I kind of will say something mild and get a reading if this person is interested in more. But what I can say is the number one thing to be a spokesperson for a spiritual path is to live it. And this is where it can get challenging because, first of all, I want to remind you that you are in human form. And even if you are an avatar who has come and incarnated, you still chose to be human. And so you're still susceptible to the imperfections that are so perfectly human, and that you are not 100% going to be on the spectrum of all the good emotions and doing everything perfectly, because you're incarnated to learn. Even if you came with a mission, even if you have a huge mission and you're a very evolved old soul, there are still lessons that you will learn. And I even like to call them refinements, because there's situations that even could have caused you stress in the past that now you experience them and you're like, oh, I remember when this used to trigger me and it doesn't anymore. And this is that spiritual strength you've gained and that spiritual wisdom you've gained. And over time, there'll be new things. There'll be new ways of expanding and new challenges that present themselves. But then again, because you're on a spiritual path, you are excited on some level of your being to have another lesson, because it's another opportunity for growth and expansion. And that's what's so beautiful about a spiritual path, is you're always learning. You're in a constant student mindset. And then if you have gone to the level where you feel like you've accrued enough and a lot of knowledge and wisdom where you feel inspired to share it, and there are people that want to hear it from you, then that's a beautiful thing. And that's really how my journey started. Is I really just was sharing on social media about my life, and people were witnessing the frequency change. They were noticing through my actions, through how I was spending my time, that I was changing and transforming. And whatever I was putting out at that time was yoga, meditation, travel. I was eating in a more clean way, connected to nature, very balanced. And all of this was intriguing to people. And the reason why is because deep down, we are spiritual beings. Like, that is the essence of us. We are spirit incarnated into matter. And we have a divine soul, and we have a divine blueprint that is here to express in human form. And as I've mentioned before, spirituality is really about you embodying and expressing the truth of who you are. So much of our spiritual path and choosing a spiritual life is unlearning the falsehoods, unlearning what was programmed into us, and instead choosing the path of truth, the path of our truth. And in that knowing of our truth, being accepting with unconditional love of other people's truth without needing to prove that we're right, without judging, without being condescending or minimizing anyone else's truth, because there are many truths. And truth is truth, but someone's truth is their truth, and that is truth no matter what. And we can agree to disagree. And that's truly what spiritual is, being able to be with all that is, to be able to be with all of diversity. And on my journey to choosing a spiritual life, I've even lived in spiritual community that really taught me how to love diversity and to love it and to know how important it is, not only with humans, but in our plant life and our animal life, and knowing that the diversity of the earth is one of her superpowers, and the diversity of a group makes it a super group. And so there were times when I would host teacher trainings, or I would have my online programs, and I would see the diversity in the people from race and ethnicity and from upbringings and background. And the more diverse the group, the happier it made me, because I knew that we were coming together as a humanity for the truth of spirit, for the truth of spirituality, and for the truth of truth, to grow and evolve together. And it didn't matter about all the noise and the illusion of what's outside of us, but to remember that we are the creators of our reality. So we are co-creating everything in every moment, and something is only in front of us because we have brought it to ourselves. And knowing that every relationship and situation is a mirror to serve us. It's a lesson for us. It's bringing us wisdom and golds and gems. And so when there is a group of people with this goal to evolve, it's so beautiful, because then you can engage in conscious conversation. And even if it might not always look pretty, there at least is that common goal to evolve together. And I've also been a part of other spiritual communities that had challenges in communication, and it was very painful, painful to witness, painful to be a part of. But I know that we all grew from that experience, and I could have a heart of gratitude to know, like, we are spiritual warriors. We're willing to go into the fire, and we're willing to do this work to evolve ourselves, to evolve as a humanity. And what I always like to remind people who are choosing a spiritual path, especially when the times get tough, is know that it's not a path that's in vain. Know that every time you raise your frequency, you are helping the planet. You're raising the frequency of the planet. And just like the 100 monkey effect, like, let's say if your neighbors are not spiritual and your family is not spiritual, just by you doing that work and you changing your frequency, and then you going out into the world and talking to people and them seeing how you are and what you do, you begin to affect change in the world. And when enough of the population, it's a very small percent. So, right. So it's called the 100 monkey effect. So when you think of how many monkeys there are on the planet, I don't actually know the number. Maybe it's millions, who knows, right? Probably. And so if just 100 learn a new trait, all of the monkeys learn it. So if the same premise is true, which I believe it is for humans, just enough of us need to awaken, need to choose to evolve. And I don't mean by need like it comes from scarcity. It comes from that divine inspiration. We were born for this work. Like, we are the spiritual warriors here to evolve and change the planet. And you know what? People in my life have evolved since my awakening. Like, my mother awakened her spiritual gifts. All of the women in my family, by me really going through my spiritual lineage on earth as well as from the stars, and awakening my healing gifts, it was like a chain reaction that set it off in the others. And even like seeing my dad posting beautiful quotes on social media at one point, and seeing my sister eat healthier and like work out and do all these things that she wasn't always doing, and then asking me for advice. And so it was beautiful. Then I can share my ultimate nutrition course with her, right? That includes both spiritual eating as well as regular eating for the body, and also for the mind, and also for the spirit, to be a clear channel and vessel, right? So spirituality is so diverse. It comes in the form of the physicality, what we do, what we put into our body. And it also comes in the form of how we think, how we engage in our relationships. And that's why I created my ultimate relationships course. And I have my rituality course, because then it can get really tangibly spiritual, right? Where we're actually doing spiritual practices. And even I have a whole course on meditation, because as I share in the bonus content of this episode, meditation is one of the most powerful ways to shift your energy fields, to shift your life, and just to shift how you see and operate in the world. You become a superhuman that you're meant to be through meditation. It expands your mental and brain capacity. And our brain is really functioning as the motherboard of our actions, our thoughts, our behaviors. And through meditation, we're able to see ourselves and have greater self-awareness. And so I've created over 50 plus online courses and workshops, etc., healings, because it never ends, and that's the beauty of it. We are always evolving. We are such dynamic, multidimensional creatures. And the way we choose a spiritual life is we choose to do the work. We choose to do the healing. We choose to take in new information that will change our frequency, change our mindset, even change us down to the cellular and DNA level. And as I activated my light language, for example, which is a spiritual gift, a spiritual healing gift, and a spiritual activation gift, to see people go through transformations through the ascension codes and the abundance codes has been incredible. And so what I used to call the ultimate year, which is a year of access to all of these online courses and experiences, I'm in the process of rebranding it to either Spirit School or the New Earth Academy. I'm still deciding, because it's both. And because my ultimate intention is here as a bringer of the new earth, I'm leaning more towards the New Earth Academy, but also Spirit School, because spirituality is foundational. Our being is spirit. We are spiritual beings here having a human experience. It is our spirit that gives life to our body. It is our spiritual path and our spiritual life that helps us to evolve. And I even have a whole course all about spirituality. And so we're going to be touching on some of those topics in this season of the podcast, which is really focused on spirituality, because when we tap into the spiritual aspects of everything in life, this is how we can really change things from the inside out. We don't have to really do so much. We can do it through the energetics and through our way of being and thinking as creator beings. And I love it so much because it allows for grace. It allows for a more easeful life, and it really empowers you. It empowers all of us to take radical responsibility to live the life we want to live. And when things get challenging, or we're up to heal something or shift something or evolve a way of being or thinking within ourselves because a situation arises that is not our ideal situation or what we believe that we want, we can change it. So choosing a spiritual path is choosing to take responsibility for the life we create. It's putting the power back in our hands. It's taking life by the steering wheel and saying, okay, I'm deciding where I go, what I do, what experience I have, and I know I have the power to change it. And sometimes it's easy. We just get it and we shift things. And some things are lifelong lessons, and that's okay. And it makes life fun and exciting, and it's never a dull moment. And there are moments that we can choose to just be human and just like enjoy the moment and not have it mean anything. And then there's moments where we really want to self-reflect. And if you're like me, you're here because you know you're here to live your ultimate potential. And if you're possibly like me too, you know you're here to catalyze that in others. And so I love doing this work. I love sharing this work. And to be honest, this work is so much of my own medicine. Whenever I teach, guide, speak, I'm receiving the transmission as well. And so when I have moments of challenge or even feeling like not inspired, I just need to open my mouth and channel the words through, connecting to spirit and source. And even before I came on, I said, Spirit, please speak through me and allow me to speak what is for the highest and best good of all, for the creation of the new earth. And so it is my gift to you. It is my honor. Thank you so much for being here. I invite you to subscribe to the podcast because there you can get access to the bonus content. And today I'm going to guide you through a meditation to connect to your highest self. I also invite you into the year-long experience. We'll see what I decided to name it, whether it's Spirit School or it's the New Earth Academy, so you can receive access to all of the content. And it's great because you can just listen in the background like a podcast, and then you're infusing your brain and your consciousness with new ideas, with new ways of being. And then you start to see the shifts in your life happen so beautifully, so easily for exactly what you want to create, so that you're in charge, you're the boss, you're deciding your life, you're creating your new earth, you're learning through pleasure. And so I am so honored and grateful. Thank you for doing this great work, for being here with me. And I will see you inside the bonus content. Big kiss and bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Please like this podcast and share it with anyone you feel would benefit. Subscribe to the podcast to receive bonus content, and remember, every Monday the video version goes live on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being on the Ascension path with me and for doing this great work.